Well, good evening and welcome once again to the PBL Roundup Show presented by the Baseball Bureau's Scout School. I'm Thom Brennaman. Great to have you with us tonight, and we have an incredible show tonight. I think you're going to find it very, very interesting. We're going to start by taking a look at the Grand Junction Rockies and discuss ultimately what has become a critically important issue facing the game of baseball, and that is the decline of the African-American player in the game, especially at the major league level. Now, we have some very, very special guests to help us sort through this problem, talk about it, debate us, and help to gain, I guess, a perspective on what needs to happen to begin to attract more African-American players to play baseball, period, not just at the major league level, but in the minor leagues, collegiately, high school, even all the way down to Little League. All right, each and every week, joined by my co-host, the famed comedian and actor, Mr. Joe List, and former Angels and Mariners general manager, Bill Bavasi. Before we get to you guys, and Billy especially, I want to check in with you on this topic because you grew up in Southern California where your dad worked for both the Dodgers and for the Angels and the Padres, all three of those teams. So you were right down there. When Vin Scully was broadcasting Dodger baseball each and every night, 67 years as the voice of the Dodgers, going all the way back to their days, of course, in Brooklyn, national telecast in baseball for NBC and CBS. He did the NFL, did the PGA Tour. He announced the Masters for a number of years. He's a Baseball Hall of Famer. He's won a Presidential Medal of Freedom award, and he passed away yesterday, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with his whole family. And really, Bill, generation after generation after generation of fans that grew up knowing Dodger baseball through the eyes and the voice of Vin Scully.
Yeah, that's a great point, the last one you made. And, you and your father can really appreciate this, but, it didn't matter what generation you're from. My grandparents to my grandkids, would have loved this guy, and he would in Los Angeles. It was like having music on. He just did it so beautifully, and he went through a couple of periods where he worked with somebody in the booth with him, and then he went through a long period where he did it by himself, and both were great. He just knew how to use the person with him and make that person look better. And he was just so fabulous. I don't know how to put it into words. You're the wordsmith, so I'm going to count on you and Joe. But God, he was a real important part of a lot of our lives. And I don't want to minimize that at all. He was a really very, very important part of a lot of people's lives. He got us through good times and bad. He was just he was so fantastic, and he knew when to keep it quiet and let the fans do the talking.
It's interesting because I had a chance to, of course, speak with him many, many, many times and got to know him well. I'm not going to say I was a close personal friend, but certainly knew him quite well. And I mean, as great an announcer as he was, and this has said a lot about a lot of people, but for a guy who achieved everything that he achieved, I don't know if I've ever met anybody in any walk of life that achieved as much as he did, that was almost impervious to having any kind of ego about any of it. He was just such a beautiful, gracious, kind, calm man. And I can never thank him enough for taking the time with me on times that I'd try to pick his brain. Him and Dick Enberg, for me, were two guys, especially Dick Enberg, where anytime I ever asked him for a little advice or just wanted to pick their brain a little bit. And Joe, even for you growing up in Boston, I mean, the game of the week, back in the days, there was a time it was him and Joe Garagiola, him and Tom Seaver there near the end of that NBC run. I mean, he was baseball to America, not just Dodger fans.
Yeah, absolutely. And the 86 World Series we were all obsessed. Yeah. I was a kid, and that great call, little roller up along first, behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it. And so understated, which is my favorite thing. I mean, I'm such a play-by-play guy, and in baseball, of course, it's the most important thing because there's so much downtime. And he was just fantastic in his stories. And we talked about it earlier in the show, the fact that, or in the history of this show, that the fact that he did it by himself is just unbelievable. And of course, 88, you talk about a roll of the dice. I mean, those are so deeply embedded in my head. And with the MLB app, the last few years, I just watched Dodger games late at night just for Scully, because time is limited, and he had to come to an end soon. So it was just a treasure. He's such a huge part of my childhood and my adulthood. He's the greatest, in my opinion.
Well, Joe, you have quite the blossoming play-by-play career going. We heard you do a PBL game, and I understand that you've been up in Toronto over the last week, and you had one of those rooms that's built out there in straightaway center field at the Rogers Center where the Blue Jays play. Of course, there are a lot of video of folks through the years in those rooms, and we can talk about that some other time. But what were you doing up there? Were you watching a game? Were they in town? The whole deal? What?
So I had a gig in Toronto. I flew in a day early because there's only 7 ballparks I haven't been to, and Rogers Center was one of them, so I had to check it off the list. So I went in a day early, went to the game, and then the next day I moved to the club, was putting me up at a hotel, and they didn't tell me, but they gave me the hotel in the Rogers Center with a room facing the ballpark.
Cool.
Which is just magical. I didn't want to do the show. I mean, I wanted to quit comedy and just hang out up there. And it was awesome. And during the day, I was watching the pre-batting practice. And I actually got on the field for batting practice. Mike Wilner's a friend of mine. Do you know Mike? Mike Wilner? He was the radio voice of the Blue Jays.
Yes, of course.
Nice guy. So he got me down on BP. Guy. Great guy. And so anyways, then the game started. I got room service and just did a little play-by-play up there. And I had the shackles off. When I did the Missoula game, I was with this other guy. It was being broadcast. This is at home. This is a little more myself, but I think we're going to watch the video. And I just have to say, I don't know if you've ever called a game from center field, but everything's reversed. So there's a mistake in my play-by-play. And I just want to say, I say right center and I meant left center, but everything was flipped. Other than that, it's flawless.
All right, we'll be the judge of that. Let's find out. Please.
Top of the first, 1 away, 0-2 to the hitter. I'm too far away to know who it is. This game is brought to you by PBL Roundup. Listen to the crowd. Get behind the squad here in Toronto. Here's the 0-2 pitch. A 59-footer. Skips all the way to the backstop. That'll make it 1-2. We're coming to you live from the Rogers Center. PBL Roundup is bringing you all the best in baseball, including this game between the Toronto Blue Jays and the lowly Detroit Tigers. And it's a capacity crowd, as you can see, totally sold out here at the Rogers Center. Joe List on the call. One of the great play-by-play men of all time. Excuse me. Here comes the 1-2. It's chopped foul back to the backstop. Everyone in the crowd reacting as though it was a strikeout because they're dumb. All right, this game is also brought to you by Buffalo Wings. That's why I had to clear my throat. I was eating buffalo wings. Okay, pitcher standing just off the rubber on the mound, taking his sweet, sweet time. That's the problem with baseball for a lot of people. They got no patience. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 1 away. You can see the shift in the infield. There's the great Matt Chapman. What an ass on that guy. Okay, here comes the 1-2 pitch. Eventually, it is lined into deep right center. Back on his horse. He makes a nice grab. Listen to the crowd. Oh, goodness gracious. What a nice play by the center fielder. I don't know his name. The right fielder is Teoscar Hernandez. I met him earlier. Nice guy. What a spectacular play. How about that, folks? PBL Roundup.
Joe, I got to tell you, not bad.
Thank you very much. And I was doing the camera work. Not easy.
Well done. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. There I am with Luis Rivera, former Boston Red Sox. And by the way, this guy is defying time. If you can pull up a Luis Rivera card, he was like a skinny nerd in 1989 when I was watching him in the infield. He was Jody Reed's double play partner. The guy's ripped. He's 58 years old. I mean, he could beat the crap out of me. Look at him.
Yeah. I mean, some of these coaches, Billy, you've seen them. These guys are all buffed up these days. They're getting to the ballpark at 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, they take care of themselves. They weren't like us, Tom.
No.
And by the way, 58's pretty young, isn't it?
It's right. I'm 58.
He should be in his prime. Yeah.
The new 48.
He looks
good call though. Good. I thought that was good. And apropos of Vin Scully, Marty Brennaman, Thom Brennaman, John Miller, Vin Scully, the list goes on, that not causes, but encourages kids to do what Joe just did. And there's a bunch of kids at Syracuse University that are doing that, I'm sure. But you guys in the booth are an inspiration to a lot of kids that want to do that.
Well, it's always a joy when you get a chance to talk to young people about wanting to get into the field and how to go about it. We'll save that. We're going to have a show of broadcasters a little bit later on this summer. We'll be checking in on games throughout the PBL. And speaking of Syracuse University, we've got Carter tonight handling Ogden at Grand Junction, as well as Glacier at Billings against the Mustangs. Austin will handle the Northern Colorado Owls at the Rocky Mountain Vibes, as well as Great Falls in Missoula. And then Owen will handle the Boise Hawks at the Idaho Falls Chuckers. But let's check in with Carter Lewis right now to bring us up to date on last week in the PBL and our players of the week. Carter, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Tom. How are you doing?
Great. What's happening?
All right, so first off, we're going to start with the players of the week from last week. So for the North batter, we have Riley Jepson of the Great Falls Voyagers. Last week, he put up a .550 batting average, had 8 walks, and something that's not up there that I want to bring attention to. Not only did he have 8 walks, he also didn't strike out a single time. Wow. So he had a really good week last week, also driving in 8 runs, 5 extra base hits. Overall, great week for him and Great Falls. For North pitcher of the week, we decided to go with Kelvin Pilot of the Billings Mustangs. Across 2 games, he pitched 11 2/3 innings, striking out 14 batters and only walking 6. Picking up 2 wins with an ERA of 1.54. And in one of those games, he didn't allow a single earned run. So a pretty good week for Kelvin there. For the South batter of the week, we went with Casey Peterson of the Grand Junction Rockies. Across 6 games, he had 12 hits, 4 walks, and 12 RBIs, as well as 3 home runs, a triple, and a double. So a pretty good week for them as Grand Junction gets off to a hot start for the second half of the season. And finally, for the South pitcher of the week, we went with Kita De La Cruz. Probably one of my favorite names that I've ever heard. In one game, he pitched only 5 innings, but he struck out 8 batters, didn't give up a single walk, only allowed 1 hit, no earned runs against, and got the win. So overall, congrats to these guys and a great week for them all.
All right, Carter, great stuff. We thank you very much. We'd like to mention, Billy, we talked a lot about it before our show last week. Turned out to be a very successful midseason tryout camp in Boise this past weekend, right?
Yeah, I know a lot of you are probably sick of me talking about this, but I think these tryout camps are great. We had a very successful midseason tryout camp in Boise this past weekend, and as you mentioned, we'd like to bring in the PBL Director of Baseball Administration, Aaron Bond, who ran the camp, to give us a summary of how it all went. I think we're going to put this off until later, Tom.
Okay, all right, we'll put it off for a little while, and we'll check back in on that a little bit later on, and make sure that we can do that. All right, let's shift gears here real quick. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, Joe, you were quote unquote, I think your word of choice was embedded with the Missoula Paddleheads as a player.
That's right. Yes, I was embedded, and I should have remained on the team. I'm still bitter, but I had a great time out there. And then I've come to find out there was a tryout. I knew about the tryout, and there's somebody, a civilian, got to try out, and it wasn't me, which I just think is appalling. But I'm being told it's because I'm still signed with the Paddleheads. I think they might be messing with me. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, this sounds like some trickery going on. Apparently, Cohen Jenkins. He works for KTVB 7 News in Boise, and he actually tried out as a player, and you actually had a chance, Joe, to catch up with him about this tryout and the tryout camp. Check it out.
Dutch Landis, man, how you been?
I've been good. Just got in last night. Had a little delay.
Hey, we're here. Cohen Jenkins.
Yeah.
I'm Joe List. Thanks for being here. Well, you survived. You're alive. You're looking good.
Yeah. It was a really hot day. It got up to 105 later in that day. It was only about 100 by the time I was done, but Baseball, you need to have an ability to stand the heat. That's one thing I learned.
Yeah, I guess so. And the cold. If you're playing a big league season, it's so crazy that, these guys are playing in April in Boston, New York, Detroit. It's like 40 degrees. Then in August, it's 150. And then
You're
by the end
playing
of the
in
year, it's back to 40.
Arizona. Yeah, and then the postseason, like you got to go to like Fenway Park and like hit a ball when it's 35 and it shatters your knuckles every time you do it.
Yeah, well, this year you don't have to play at Fenway in October, but
That's fair.
some years in the past. So take us through it, because I had an experience. I got to be embedded with the paddle heads, but you did a full tryout, which is such a different experience. I got to say, I'm jealous first and foremost. But going in, first question, I got a bunch. First question, going in, was there any part of you, a small part of you, like a piece, a 1% that thought, what if I make this goddamn league, make this team?
Oh, absolutely not. I think the best chance I would have had is I actually have a decent knuckleball. I can only throw it about 50 miles an hour, but my only shot was maybe I throw a knuckleball and some coach is like, I haven't seen movement like that in quite a while, because the knuckleball is a dying art in baseball, and I think some would like to see it come back.
Absolutely. I'm a Boston guy, and so Tim Wakefield blew our minds in '95 when he first came. Did you bring it up at all? Did you mutter it to anybody? Did you whisper it to anyone?
Yeah, I was asking if anyone had a radar gun so I could test out what my arm strength was. I bet I could throw 65, not accurately, but I think I could throw 65 miles an hour.
That's the knuckleball. That's the fastball. Because
no, that's the fastball. That's the fastball. That's like a big league knuckleball right there. 65.
Yeah. So, but that's a nice little change. If you're throwing a 50-mile-an-hour knuckleball and then you throw a 65-mile-an-hour fastball, that's not bad.
The pitching machine they were using were throwing 85. So,
and how did you fare at BP?
Oh, badly. So they did some coach toss, and I was doing okay-ish on the coach toss. I still couldn't really catch up to it. I was mostly hitting them down the right field line. But I actually connected on one really well, and it sort of sliced down the right field line, and a bunch of guys weren't paying attention, and I hit a guy in the leg. I sliced a ball around the protective netting, and I hit somebody with a line drive. So I felt kind of bad about that.
Oh, no, you should feel good. That's nice. That's points. Well, I got to tell you, I saw the video. I don't know if we've played the video already or if we'll play it right after, but that sounded like a nice piece, and I heard you kind of react. I didn't realize it actually hit somebody. Were they mad at you?
No, I don't. I didn't hit the ball hard enough. A baseball guy's used to getting drilled by an 85 mile per hour, 90 mile per hour pitch. So me hitting a exit velo 60 mile per hour line drive probably didn't hurt anybody.
Well, this is something. So I got to be on the paddleheads for a day, which was great, or a night. And one thing that I was really blown away by, taken aback by, was how little anybody's paying attention to the ball during BP, during infield, even the bullpen during the game. They just don't care. They're agnostic towards getting hit by the baseball.
I'm always surprised that there are still bullpens that are on the field, catchers facing away from a potential line drive that could just, people hit the ball really hard.
Yeah, no, it's scary. By the way, I think I meant apathetic, not agnostic. Didn't make sense in that thing, and I just feel
it's a religious experience getting hit with a foul ball.
They're unsure how they feel about getting hit by a ball. But no, I told this story somewhere, but I was attempting to shag fly balls, which I want to ask you about also, during a batting practice, and I didn't see the ball come off the bat, and one of the players just went, "Ball on you." And a 300-mile-an-hour baseball landed about 7 inches from my face. It just went zigging by. And where I come from, you would have gone, "Oh, get down!" But the guy just threw the ball on you, and I almost died. Did you try to shag fly balls out in the outfield? Do you have any luck out there?
I'm not terrible at shagging fly balls. They also did it wasn't in the video, but they did I did a couple rounds of balls hit into the outfield, throw it to third base, throw it to home kind of deal. And I didn't do terrible at those. From right field, I one bounce to third base and one bounce to home, but the third baseman and catcher didn't actually have to move. So the accuracy was there. It wasn't on a line at 6 feet like the other guys who were throwing it. But yeah.
It got there. Maybe it was a catcher running, someone with a
Yeah.
broken ankle or something.
David Ortiz tried to stretch a single from first to third, and maybe I gunned him down.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, don't you find this a little frustrating? I don't know who's editing your video, but I think I have a suspicion that these folks are purposefully keeping out our best moments in these videos to make it look like we're a couple of nerds.
Yeah, there was like one where I actually did it was like a roller in from shortstop, and I did a glove flip where I tossed it from my glove and barehanded it and threw it on the run. And I feel like that deserved its own like slow down, like quarter speed, sick montage with music on top. I don't know.
Absolutely. And where is this footage? I mean, I think I'm on to something here. They don't want, I think because the president of the league is an ex-ball player, he doesn't want people seeing that civilians can step right in and play at a pretty high level.
My boy Brad, editing in marketing, also my roommate, he was just jealous, he was just jealous of my skill, and he didn't want that to get out there.
That's what I think it is. I got to say, I think you and I, if we played second short, would make a good double team, like Omar Vizquel and Roberto Alomar. They were a double play team for a while, right?
We could be Tinkers, Evers, and Chance, maybe. I don't know.
I think we could make some stuff happen. So at the end of the, I want to ask about this. The other players, what was their reaction? Were any of them like, what the hell are you doing here?
So, I mean, we didn't have any. So I work for Channel 7, first of all, in Boise. That's where I'm from. I do marketing for a lifestyle show there.
Gotcha.
And we had like these visors, Channel 7 hats, but we didn't have any like baseball hats. So I wore this Channel 7 visor. So like, I first of all, I'm looking like a goofball out there with a visor on. So clearly, like, I show up to the tryout, and there's like a line of dudes, and they're all like beefed up baseball guys. Like they've got their like Grambling State University. Like there's a guy with an LSU baseball shirt. Like you can tell these guys are all just like studs looking at him. And then there's me in my like Brewers spring training warm up and visor. So they could clearly tell like something was up. Like this is not a guy who actually paid to be at a tryout like this.
Yeah, I would have advisored against that hat.
But at the same time, I feel like it endeared me to them a little bit, because they were all like, they were supporting me. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, dude, like I saw you like make that throw. That was like not bad. Like nice job." So I think they were pretty chill with it, and they were like asking questions like, "Oh, what are you doing here? Like what's up with this?" But I was afraid that there were some guys who were going to think I was making a mockery of them, but really I was trying to do the opposite. Like I was trying to show like how good they are compared to the average fella.
Yeah, see, that's when I had too. When I was with the paddleheads for a day, I was worried about getting an at bat, and I thought, are they just going to drill me? Because as an old school baseball purist, a 40-year-old comedian taking the batter's box should be getting drilled in the ass at the minimum, possibly the head. But I asked the bullpen guys, and they said they'd just pad their stats and just blow me away in 3 pitches.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's just like facing the worst pitcher possible. You just throw 3 strikes and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. So I
have a question for you. Which pitch were you more afraid of? Were you more afraid of just like a fastball, or were you more afraid of a curveball that you thought was going to hit you in the head, and then you backed away, and then it lands right in the middle of the plate?
That's a good question. I mean, getting hit by a fastball is the biggest fear, because I would be rubbing it. I know you're not supposed to rub, but I'd be crying and rubbing and probably screaming for my mother. But a curveball, I wouldn't be as embarrassed about getting buckled as I would just taking a crazy swing and falling down, like corkscrewing into the ground.
Well, so there's going to be a longer version of the video that we make, because we really just like shot that on Saturday and did a quick edit for this thing. But we're going to make a longer video that's going to include player interviews, because we talked to a few of the guys trying out. And it will also include, I did like a pre-training montage where I went to like a family fun center's batting cages, and the batting cages there were horrible, and every pitch was really low. And spoiler alert, there, like I did take a fall there. So,
oh, I can't wait.
Yeah,
we got to get that footage. Hopefully, you don't have the same editor from my video, because mine has been being edited for about 6 months. But
we're pretty quick over here. Both my roommate so my roommate sits right next to me at my desk, and he's editing this stuff, and he's really good at that. So
all right, yeah,
we should have some good stuff.
Yeah, maybe I'll have my producer just send all the stuff to you so I can actually see my. Sorry, this went from an interview to just me being passive aggressive about the producer.
Jackson.
So what's your big takeaway? Did you gain more respect? Or you already had a lot of respect. What's the number one takeaway from this tryout?
I was amazed at the amount of people, and there's about 120 people competing for only 20 spots. You only have like a 1 in 6 chance of being drafted there. But also where people were from. Like I saw shirts of college baseball programs from literally all over the country. Like Grambling State, which is in the South, like St. Peter's Northeast School. There was a kid from Hawaii there. And I was just listening to the stories of how they got here. It's like, yeah, man, I drove here like 15 hours last night. Or like me and my dad like drove in 2 days from Nebraska to get here. And I'm just amazed that like these guys are like, they're working hard for their dream. Like it is not easy to, you're just out of college. You're kind of wondering what you got to do. And to get in independent baseball, it takes a little bit of luck and a ton of hard work. And these guys are working really hard trying to get to all these tryouts and do all this stuff and make it happen.
Wow, that's tremendous. I love that. I mean, I'm just, especially as I get older, I get more sentimental, and I'm in showbiz, so it feels similar to me. And I just love anybody and respect anybody that's going after it, trying to keep the dream alive. And I also respect anyone that embeds themselves in the middle of it to get these good stories and risk their life, for God's sake. So we appreciate you, and I appreciate your service, Cohen.
Yeah, thank you. I also the thing about tryouts is so scary. I wasn't scared because I knew I had no chance, but you're taking grounders next to these guys, and it's like, well, you may be one of the most talented players there, but you boot one grounder, which happens, it gets a bad hop. And then it's like, well, there's 30 other guys who are making perfect plays behind you. So it's really like a high stress situation for these guys, but they all took it very calmly, and nobody was being a dick out there. Everyone was being really nice and like supporting each other. And I think, baseball and like sports culture kind of gets a hard rap sometimes, but I do think baseball players do have like a pretty solid culture, and like they're pretty nice to people they don't even really know.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I really think, not to go on a deeper thing here, but I actually find that way with most people in general. It's like that old thing, like 10% of the people cause 90% of the problem.
Yeah.
I find in most fields, most people you meet, don't you think, are actually quite kind and thoughtful, and it's just little incidences. We have a negativity bias, but humanity's going to be just fine.
To get even deeper, like Malcolm Gladwell, this guy, he does all that stuff. His new thing is like talking to strangers, and how like we're all afraid about like talking to strangers these days, but really like that's where like how some of the most important things can happen, and it's really not that dangerous because most people are pretty cool. So
yeah, absolutely. I read that book also, and I think you and I are just better than everybody.
Yeah, that's
the real takeaway here.
we're better read, and frankly, we're underrated baseball players.
Absolutely, yeah. Cohen, thanks so much for being on the show and being a part of this. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if we already played the video. If not, here's the video.
When I was a little kid, I had dreams of growing up to be a pro ball player. And then those dreams were canceled at age 12 when I realized I wasn't very good at baseball. The last time I played baseball, I was 12 years old. It was Little League, and I struck out with the bases loaded to end my team's season. But now, it's my time to shine. Let's get this. Fielding number 7. Oh, nope. And a little low. Looks a little slower on TV, but we're trying our best out here. Oh. My bad. Let's pick. Overall, I gotta say that was pretty bad. But I got it. The slow rollers, you know, when it's not coming super hard at you, I got those down. Gotta get that swing right. It's been a while. Also don't know how long it's been since I've swung a wood bat. Ooh, that's pretty slow through the zone. That's pretty slow. These things are pretty heavy. I'm not sure how actual baseball players do this. Catch up to a 95-mile-per-hour fastball. It's getting hot out here. It's like 100 degrees. But apparently that's baseball life. I'm looking for a slow pitch softball toss out there, but we'll see if I can catch up to it. Oh, he's got that heat. Heads up.
Before they come back around.
Okay.
First round's always rough for me too.
There we go. Get in, get in. Oh, heads up. Well, there you go. Well, I'm hot, I'm sweaty, and I'm tired. But at least now I know for certain that I'm not very good at baseball.
Tell you what, you got to give it up to the guy, just like with Joe, and that was good stuff. All right, we're gonna get into our topic of conversation tonight, and it's a very interesting conversation. It's about the decline of African American players in the sport of baseball, going all the way down to Little League and all the way up in some of the numbers we're going to dive into. We'll focus particularly on the major leagues, and we have a very special guest for you. Mike Tolan is an award-winning producer and director, one of the truly great and passionate baseball fans you're ever going to want to meet. Big Phillies fan, I understand. Don't hold that against him. But you've seen his work, the 10-part series, Michael Jordan, Who Hasn't Watched The Last Dance, movies like Summer Catch, Radio, Varsity Blues, Coach Carter. I love that flick, Coach Carter. The Zookeeper's Wife, TV credits Smallville, One Tree Hill, Arliss, The Bronx is Burning. He's done documentaries on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Allen Iverson, the great Hank Aaron. And no doubt, many of you currently are watching on ESPN the fantastic 7-part series on Derek Jeter called The Captain. He's the executive producer of that series. He's also tied into the PBL, as he will be the managing partner for the pro sports teams at that Future Legends project going on we've told you about in Windsor, Colorado, which will include the PBL's Northern Colorado Owls. I don't know if you can get much more of an introduction than that, Mike Tolan.
Tom,
thanks so much for joining us. How are you?
You're making me tired, Tom, listening to I need
You know,
to take a nap.
before Joe asks you something, I got to tell you, I had a buddy of mine called me last night, and I haven't been able to broadcast a baseball game for 2 years. I'm not making this about me, but he said, you know what? He said, Tom, your calls must have been about a third of that segment that I watched last night. So thanks for throwing me in there. I really appreciate it. I was lucky to be around some of those.
It is what it is. You're the zealot, right? It's like a crazy thing. I'm having dinner with Charlie Steiner last night when we get the Vince Scully news. Talk about really hitting you hard. And Charlie had the opposite reaction. Was like, I thought I was a broadcaster for the Yankees. I got about a 3-second version of the Aaron Boone home run off the foul pole, and then in comes Michael Kay, and it's like, thanks for throwing me a bone. Hey, Tom, you were there, and we remember the great work. You and I met briefly in a hotel bar in Detroit.
I know.
Had a great conversation, and it's great to kind of meet you, or whatever virtual version this is.
Well, very nice to catch up with you again too. Now, Joe, you wanted to ask him something about another thing he did though first, right?
Yeah, we did. I don't think we mentioned it here, but you were you executive producer of the Comedy Store doc, right? I'm a comedian and also the executive producer of a film. So I've executive produced one thing, but I loved that Comedy Store doc. Fantastic.
That was a blast. I've lived in LA now for 30 years, and I'd be lying if I said I frequented the Comedy Store, but I got very friendly with Peter Shore, who's Mitzi Shore's other son, the brother of Paulie, right? Mm-hmm. He's kind of the grown-up who actually runs the joint, and man, did I get an education. I mean, you saw about the same number of interviews on that series as we had on The Last Dance, over 100. Mike Binder, who was the filmmaker, had also kind of started as a stand-up, came from Detroit, along with Jim Carrey back in the day. that place is thriving. And I'll just unsolicited testimony. Any of your viewers are coming through LA, you got to stop in the Comedy Store. There's 3 rooms. They're packed nightly. It's kind of you know what I learned that's so fascinating. It's kind of a gym, right, Joe? I mean, that's the place. It's sort of a sacred ground where a comedian can go in and try out material, and the audience is with you, and they allow you to, like Chris Rock famously went in and auditioned his own Academy Award monologue night after night in the Comedy Store. So you really feel like you're a part of the process. It's a special place.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the kind of the Comedy Cellar on the East Coast and the Comedy Store on the West Coast of those legendary clubs. And then before that, it was Ciro's, the nightclub, and there was mob hits, and although Jackie Gleason was hanging out in there. So it's a legendary place, and you guys really did a great job capturing it.
Well, my guys who did that with me, I told them I was going on this show and that you were going to be on it, and they were psyched. So you have some fans here in
that's cool.
Mandalay Sports Media.
Glad to
Mike,
hear.
Mike, we talked about the captain, and this is just a fabulous series. But everything you do, it seems to turn out that way. And this is a perfect segue into our topic tonight, and the decline of African American baseball players. You've done 2 of these, not only with Derek Jeter, but also Hank Aaron, who I consider to be the greatest player who ever played, but others will differ with me on that. What are your thoughts on this topic, or was there anything that maybe Hank shared with you, or Derek shared with you, or somebody else you were using in those shows that hits you as to why that's going on?
There's so many factors, Tom. I don't know if Randy's coming on later tonight.
He is.
Great, because Randy will have a lot to say about it. I mean, Randy is a student of the game as well, Yankee fan, so he's had a little more to cheer about than I have as a Philly fan. But he approaches storytelling on a topic like this from a race, class, and culture, not just hits, runs, and RBIs. Working with Hank Aaron in the mid '90s, it was a spectacular education, and we did talk about it a lot. There's so many social issues. I don't know that I'm the most qualified person, although I am, as you said, a huge baseball fan, and I've been around an awful lot of folks. But it's about economic development. It's about absentee fathers. It's about the cost of baseball and all of the equipment, and thinking about African Americans in urban neighborhoods and not having the space. It's just to a certain extent also about role models in this country. When you're a young athlete and you have an opportunity to go make real strides and potentially dream of a professional career, probably the guys hanging on your wall are basketball players or football players. It's just a cultural shift. In my day, as a Philly guy, you might imagine my hero was Richie Allen. 64, his rookie year, was my first year as a fan, and I was like the duckling, right there. I was following him, and with that 41-ounce War Club, man, and then we got to be great friends, and we will get him in the Hall of Fame, guys. He's the only guy in the history of baseball to miss the Hall of Fame induction by 1 vote twice. So third time's going to be a charm. But when I did the Hank Aaron film, I had a screening in Philadelphia, and I invited Richie Allen to come. And in the middle of the film, I looked around for him, and he had left the auditorium. And I went out, and what did I do? Did we do something or say something that offended you or insulted you? And I found him in his truck, just smoking a cigarette, sitting there, kind of looking out the window. He said, I couldn't take it anymore, because he said, this is what we all lived through, and the pain, showing Henry in the 50s as one of the very few black players. Remember, the Phillies sent Richie Allen down to Little Rock in '63 to integrate not just a team but a league. It was John Quinn's idea of giving this kid a sharpening up or something. And man, what he went through there. And this is 1963. This is 16 years after Jackie.
Right.
So many social factors. I feel like my childhood was the golden era, which to me was dominated by African American players. You think about Henry and Willie and Frank Robinson and Bob Gibson and the '64 Cardinals that broke my heart. There's a great David Halberstam book that probably would be worth reading on this topic called 1964, where he talks about the Yankees just completely missing the boat and getting swept by the Cardinals in that kind of watershed World Series. Another guy, I've been on a panel with Doug Glanville. Who's a great guy to talk to about this topic.
Sharp guy, yeah.
Very sharp guy. Obviously, he's a writer and a broadcaster now. And I think to the credit of MLB, they've made this a priority, as you know. I think the numbers, which I don't have off the top of my head, are much more encouraging in terms of the racial makeup of the top draft choice in the top rounds this year. They've obviously had the RBI program and academies, and it's gone to what now, 2 African American players per 25-man roster, from a position of real dominance. So hopefully it's trending back the other way.
Billy?
I found, watching I just have a compliment, I think, Mike. Watching The Captain, I've watched so far, I think the first 4 episodes are out. And I've seen all 4 and I binge watched them. And it's really emotional. It really is. It might not be for you, but when you grow up in this game from birth and you're around it and you see the importance that it holds for your family and everybody around you, and then you see something like this, you did this, but there's other documentaries about baseball that just don't do that to me, but this one is really emotional. It just brings out all the good. And, I was so glad how you portrayed his parents, because they were so fabulous, and that's not that common in baseball. We have a lot of trouble with parents at times and they think their kid is everything. But I want to say it brought out all the emotion that this game brings, all good and bad, mostly good in this thing. And I was so heartened to see just how fabulous his parents were.
Well, the first thing I need to say is that you mentioned is a collective you. The expression "it takes a village" certainly applies to doing a series like this. And Randy Wilkins, who will be coming on next, is the director. He's the one sitting in the chair asking Derek the questions. He's the one really really making every donut. So please make sure that compliment is extended to him.
Mike, I tell you what, Mike, we're going to make it easy for you. We're going to bring in Randy right now.
Awesome.
And Randy, obviously say hello to your good friend, Mike. It's a pleasure to have you with us here today. And really a topic, Randy, I know that you think is important. I think everybody who's a baseball fan, anybody who's a fan of human beings, and it sounds pretty trite when you put it that way, but it's the truth, about the lack of African-American players, or the decline in the numbers of African-American players in the sport of baseball in general. Mike was walking through some of those things. He thought that you would certainly have some great insight into that. Is there anything or things that jump out to you to try to answer that question?
Well, first, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It's great to be in the room with everyone. What's up, Mike?
Good to see you, man.
Same here. I think there's a lot that goes through my mind, but in recent conversations I've had with people on this very topic, I think one thing we have to keep in mind is the way in which the game of baseball has been privatized in a way on the amateur level and the youth level.
Yeah.
I think in many cases, baseball is accessible to a certain economic range. And I think that leagues have done a lot to support certain members of the Black community. But I think that even then, it's really impacting people that have stable incomes, a certain income level, and still creates this issue of access. And I think that for a lot of talented Black kids that might not meet that economic threshold, it's getting harder and harder to really get into the game where they're seen by scouts and organizations. So I think a lot of it needs to be addressed on the youth level, and eventually it'll work its way up to the major league level.
Well, Randy, it's interesting you bring that up, because I was digging to get ready for this show. I was digging through a bunch of articles that have been written on this topic over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And I read where if you're starting roughly around 10, 11, 12 years old, which you just made reference to, it costs the average family somewhere between $4,900 and $5,100, $5,100, if they want their kid to basically be playing baseball year round. Whereas for many African-American kids, their idols are playing basketball and football. They're the ones that they're seeing on TV all the time. They're the ones that are being marketed all the time. And let's face it, when you play football, they hand you a helmet and shoulder pads and pants to put on. When you play basketball, they flip you a basketball. When you go to play baseball, even at the high school level, they're not handing you your bats. They're not handing you your glove. You got to go buy that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it just comes back to the privatization of baseball. And I think that it speaks to a larger issue within the industry overall, not just for Black kids, but I think for a lot of kids across the board. But it's become a specialized sport on the youth level. It feels like tennis or golf, hockey. I think it's kind of become not that it's a niche sport by its nature or by its exposure to the general populace, but I think in terms of getting into the game, if you want to pursue an actual professional career, it's on the level of those sports that I just mentioned. So I think there are other issues that relate specifically to the majors and minor leagues, but I think if we're talking about having a pipeline, I think the access has been incredibly squeezed for a lot of Black kids.
Billy, Joe?
I'm gonna jump in here, Randy, and I just mentioned to Mike, and he corrected me, but I've seen the first 4 episodes of The Captain, and I've literally grown up in this game, and I watch baseball movies or documentaries, and some of them touch you, some of them don't. This one was really emotional for me. I just thought,
thank you.
Not that I was ever involved with Derek Jeter at all, but it just triggers so many memories of great things in baseball and some tough things, But I also, I just want to say, I loved it. Just loved it.
Thank you.
Great documentary. And it was emotional. I got to watch it alone, so I could binge it, and nobody could bother me. I just loved it, and I was so heartened the way you were able to let your audience see what terrific parents this guy has.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish I had seen your documentary before I had kids.
I'm gonna say, as a unsolicited testimony, episodes 5 and 6 are on tomorrow night. Episode 5 might be my favorite. What do you think about that, Rand? It's very deep.
It's my favorite. It extends beyond baseball and starts getting into Derek's life, and I think more social and cultural things that he lies at the heart of in a lot of ways, if we were talking about a baseball and pop culture context. So I think that's the episode where we really step outside of the game for a while and really start talking about things that are important beyond the sport itself. So yeah, I think that'll have a lot of impact on a lot of people, and we wanted to make sure that it felt emotional. I mean, we didn't want this to be I don't want to disrespect Yankeeography, but we didn't want it to be a Yankeeography. We wanted it to be a human story and treat it like any other doc that's on someone of great presence as Derek has. So, I'm glad that it landed with you, and it feels like that's a job well done.
So,
somebody said to me, I don't know if I've said this to Randy yet because it just happened, having watched the first 4, and this really is high praise for the director. I feel like Derek's just sitting on the couch talking to me in our living room. He's relaxed. He's comfortable. He's listening to the question. He's actually thinking about it. He's reflective. He's contemplative. He's honest. He's digging as deep as he can. Now, this is a guy who famously never said anything, right? According to everybody who covered him from the media. And Randy's in there plugging away in the best possible way to make him comfortable and get him to go places that I think have even surprised himself. And 5 and 6 tomorrow, and then 7 next week. We get a little peek into his private life and his kids and his amazing wife, and some final reflections. The great news is I think he's enjoyed it and feels really good about it. And it's kind of in a way a love letter. Not just to Yankee fans, but to baseball fans. Mm-hmm. It really is emotional. You don't have to be a Yankee fan to feel it.
And Joe, you are not a Yankee fan.
I still like
it. Joe's a Boston Red Sox guy, so I don't know if he's watching anything with Derek Jeter.
I think the movie stinks.
Thank you. Job well done then.
No, it's funny because I'm a diehard Sox fan, but I'm a bigger baseball fan than I'm a Red Sox fan. So actually, I had to keep it quiet. But through the mid to late '90s, I really enjoyed those Yankee teams. I really loved Jeter. I was a Jeter guy, and it was one of those things. Obviously, I was rooting for the Sox, and those were also not the best years for the Sox till the late '90s. But I really enjoyed those teams, that whole core. So I've enjoyed reliving it, and those were such great times, baseball times. I mean, those World Series were great. So I enjoyed it, and I'm enjoying the hell out of the film too. I haven't been able to watch all of it yet, but I got to watch 1.5 episodes because I'm just watching on TV. I forget that I can stream the goddamn thing.
Yeah. Joe, did you see the
Randy and Mike, when you did this, when you're with Derek, how long did this take? How long did the process take with him? I mean, I'm sure you worked for years to set this up, but then the process with him, how long were you with him?
In terms of the interviews?
Yeah.
Between 20 and 30 hours.
Wow.
We had 4 interviews that were like very extensive and long. Basically like just had days dedicated to him. There was one day where we split with Derek and his wife Hannah down in Miami, but even Derek's interview then was long. Hannah's was pretty long. So it's just a substantial amount of time that was spent with him. We could probably make 2 documentaries out of all the interviews that we had with him. If we wanted to make it more like Yankee centric, we could have gone in that direction, but obviously the focus was on Derek. But yeah, it was a substantial amount of time. But the other interviews were long too. They were 3 to 4 hours with most people. So
he's that player. It doesn't matter which team he played for. He's Derek. It doesn't matter where he was. I really believe his teams would have been winners. That I really believe in this guy. I did when he was playing. I hated to see him playing against us. We just lost one. It's the only guy I can compare to him is Bill Russell, and we just so we lost one of the greats, that's why it's so heartening to see this thing, because I think Joe just said it. He's a bigger baseball fan than he is a Red Sox fan. I think that's what all real baseball fans are.
Randy, I'm curious when you were, Mike made the comment and the point, and he is spot on about those of us who covered Derek Jeter. And I announced a lot of his playoff games through the years with the Yankees, some regular season stuff, but a lot of playoff games on Fox. And I mean, when you sat down with him, he was always so pleasant. He always had that great smile. But, man, you felt like there was a wall this wide between you and him, right? And you were only going to get this much. Did you know him at all before this started? I know you talked about being with him 25 or 30 hours of actually interview time. But what allowed you, or is that just God-given talent you have, to break through that and get the stuff you're getting? Because nobody got that for his whole career. Nobody.
Well, I think there are a couple elements here. I think he had decided that he was going to open up. I mean, I think that entering something where you're doing 6 or 7 episodes, you realize in order for this to make sense or even work, you have to have a willingness to open up a little bit and not treat the director, who he or she was going to be at that time, not treat that person like a beat reporter in front of his locker every day.
Right.
So there had to be some decision on his part. But I think between he and I, we hit it off right away. I mean, I was on a Zoom with Derek and Spike Lee in June of 2020 or July of 2020. And we hit it off right away. I mean, within a minute, it felt like I had known him for 10 years. And I think it helped that I understood baseball, that I understood his career, that I was around for his career. He didn't have to explain anything baseball related to me. Like, I love film, but I love baseball even more, to be quite honest. So I think we had a common bond there. We both loved the Yankees, and we built a relationship. I visited him when he was still with Miami. I hung out with him there. I met his wife, and we just kept in touch. So I think just on a personal level, we aligned values-wise. I think we see the world differently, and similarly in a lot of ways. And I think by the time we actually got to the interview, it really did feel like a conversation, because we had so many conversations prior to that really had nothing to do with the film. We were just talking and getting to know one another. And I think that I didn't treat him any differently than I would treat anyone else, even though he's Derek Jeter. You know, so I was my authentic, honest self. I feel like I get along with everybody, or at least I try to. I don't really worship the ground that anyone walks on. I feel like people should just be treated like people. And I think he respected that. And, you know, that was my relationship with Spike. I didn't treat him any differently. I treated him like another person that I admired, but there was a limit to it. You know, I wasn't starstruck. And it was the same with Derek. And I think that people in that sphere can pick up on that right away. So I think that helped a lot. And then we just moved forward together.
Joe, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm bummed we have to wrap because this is all of my favorite topics converging is
the
baseball,
Yankees,
baseball, filmmaking, and all this stuff at
and the Yankees.
And I just love talking about the Yankees, especially the 2004 Yankees. I really enjoy talking about the 04 Yankees very much. 19-8.
Yeah, we're gonna get to the 09 Yankees tomorrow night, which is gonna be painful for me. You're gonna see Jimmy Rollins guarantee that we're gonna win that World Series. I'm not sure how that turned out.
I hated that 09 team. Okay, so we got to wrap it up, and I wish we could ask a million more questions, but we got college kids. They're very sensitive. If we bump them, they'll cry. So we got to wrap up. And the final question here. Episode 4 of The Captain, there's an image of you, Randy, wearing a Missoula Paddleheads hat. You probably don't know this about me, but I played for the Paddleheads one game, very successful.
Nice.
We won the game.
Nice.
What's the affiliation? How did you get the Paddleheads hat?
There was the minor league. There was like a promotion where it was like minor league hat day, you know, where you could get like a sale. So I just basically went through every single team that I could find, and I saw that one and immediately bought it. Like I bought 4. That was the first one, like in the cart. That hat is incredible. So it's one of my favorites. Yeah. So yeah, it was awesome. I love that
Look
hat.
at this.
Oh, nice. Yeah, nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I could sign your hat if we ever bump into each other. We're both filmmakers. I could sign your cap for you. It'll be worth a couple bucks more.
Nice. I appreciate it. We'll do it.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for your time. Randy, thank you for your time. It's been great having you guys on. I mean, you guys are just such unbelievably talented guys, and it's really cool to you guys to take the time to come on with us this week on the PBL Roundup. So thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
For having us.
All right. So at this point, it's a great time to throw it to our analytics guys. They're going to break down some of this stuff that Austin, take us through what you found. We're talking about, and Owen Trainer as well. You looked into some of the numbers, the hard numbers of African-American participation, players of African-American participation in baseball. What'd you come up with?
So what we tried to find out was using the data and the numbers of players who have been in the league over the past several dozen years, what is happening with this trend as far as declining player counts for Black players. And so if you can go to our first graphic, we pulled a graph from Sabre that illustrates this the breakdown of MLB player races throughout the years since Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947. And so what you can see is in the green towards the top, that from once Jackie broke that color barrier, for the next 20, 30 years, we have a steady growth of Black players in the MLB. And that growth continues and reaches around a plateau of around 20%-ish as you get to the late 60s, early 70s. And then from there, it kind of stagnates. And then by the time you reach the 90s, it starts decreasing. And that decline of Black players in the league continues until 2016, the end of this time frame, and continues now until we reach a point of around 7% of the entire MLB is Black. But what you can also see at the same time is once this decline of Black players starts in the early 90s, we get a rapid increase in the amount of Latino and Hispanic players. Yet while all this is happening, the amount of white players in the league is staying pretty consistent at around 60%. So while this diversity, to an extent, is still staying within the league, this increase in Black and even Asian players is the increase in Latino and Asian players is coming at the expense of Black players. So there really isn't that same diversity profile that we had going back 20, 30 years ago. And then we took this analysis one step further and compared the MLB now with some other leagues around the United States. So if you go to the next graphic, So we compare the MLB to other leagues with some pretty good diversity numbers, the NBA, the NFL, and the MLS. And what we can see here is that the NBA and the NFL actually have predominantly black player bases. The NBA comes with 73% of their player base is black, and the NFL is at 58%. And the MLS, albeit not as high as those two leagues, have a much more diverse overall player base, bringing in a lot of Latino, Hispanic, and players from even foreign countries like overseas. Meanwhile, visualizing in this way, you can really see how little of the MLB today is actually represented by black players. And a lot of this, we think, could also be a way that these leagues are portrayed and the way that they're broadcasting their games. You have choreographed touchdown celebrations in the NFL, high visibility, flashy play superstars in the NBA, whereas the MLB is a very traditional league. You have players doing things the same way over and over again. And that will impact young children watching the game and trying to get into the sport. If you're a young child turning on the TV, you're going to be drawn to people who look like you or are doing things that you like that stand out. So if you're watching an NBA game, you're going to be much more engaged or excited by watching a buzzer beater three or a big dunk, something like that, as opposed to, a guy striking out 3 times at the plate. So just the way that these leagues are broadcasting their games and their superstars really makes a difference on young players. And sort of transitioning that as those players get older, they have a lot of choices to make when it comes to what sports they want to pursue. And Owen kind of breaks down that progression as far as college options and other ways of progressing through major league sports.
Yeah, that's right. And Mike and Randy really opened it up. They were talking about how it's kind of like an exclusive sport. And one of the things that I found when looking at college baseball and college sports in general was that baseball only gets partial scholarships, where sports like football and basketball provide full rise to some of these athletes. And in this chart here, we have the number of scholarships by sport, their roster size, and what percent of the roster is on a scholarship. A sport like baseball only has, on average, 11.7 scholarships available compared to a sport like football, which has 85. So for these black athletes, there's a lot of scholarships elsewhere. And like Austin was saying, there's a lot of their role models that aren't playing baseball. So college baseball doesn't really receive as much attention as some of the other D1 sports do. We see NCAA football on every Saturday, and college basketball has their own March Madness tournament. However, programs like the College Baseball World Series don't get enough attention. A lot of kids growing up will choose what they like and see most. And if baseball isn't marketed as well as the other sports, we're going to continue to see a decline in the African-American sport for African-Americans in the sport of baseball. And more recently, the MLB draft has seen an increase in the number of black athletes drafted in the first round. I just want to note, since 2012, the MLB draft has selected 56 players in the first round of drafts, which accumulates 17.5% of the athletes selected. So that's definitely up from what we saw from Austin.
Yep. That is the good news. I read it. Guys, you guys have done great stuff here. Can't thank you enough. Austin, Owen, great work there. Bill, the thing that blows my mind about that whole thing, and we're going to hear from Adam Jones here in a second with our Henry Hunter, and he is really quite articulate when it comes to this topic. But the one that blew me away sitting there looking at that, hockey. Now think of how many colleges play hockey compared to the number of colleges that play baseball. And hockey is getting, on average, 7 more scholarships to go to college than a baseball team. Hockey. If we were in Canada, I get it. The national pastime of baseball for Division I collegiate athletics is getting, on average, 7 fewer scholarships than hockey.
Yeah, I think that end game is what is at the root of the problem is the lack of college scholarships. These parents that have dual sport athletes in their house, they have a decision to make. And so I think the target market is the 9 to 12-year-old, because at 13, that high school coach that's right around the corner, if this kid's a football player and a baseball player, the high school football coaches, I hate to say it, but some of them are jerks that don't want you doing anything except football 12 months a year. And so I think that those kids have to make decisions then. It seems like, and I'm hoping times will change, because we now have the studies that support the idea that the best long-term athletic development plan for a player includes dual sports, playing more than one sport as long as you possibly can. And whatever your best sport is, the other sports are going to help that sport. So I think that's where we have to target, is that group. And I think MLB, Tony Regans has done a great job in those younger ages. But now we have to find the answer to the problem, to the economic problem. What it costs, what you brought up earlier. We have to find out, how do we get around those costs? How do we help these kids with those costs? And I'm hopeful that there's other ideas along the way that'll come through. I will say that from my point of view, and this is just one person's point of view, the real target for me is the dual sport kid. That who they are in your neighborhood, wherever you live, who that 10-year-old or the 9-year-old or the 11-year-old, just based on what his parents have done in life and the size he is, and you see, the scouts have these tricks. They know what they're looking at. And so those are the children. We need to find a way for them to keep playing baseball, not to stop playing football or basketball or soccer. We need them to keep playing baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. We're going to continue this conversation right now because, you talk about guys who really have a good feel for this and aren't afraid to say oftentimes what, quite honestly, needs to be said. One of those guys is Adam Jones. He was on our show a couple of weeks ago, and this is a topic he's very passionate about. So we thought we'd get his perspective on this issue. We also felt it was important to hear from a Pioneer League player on this topic. So our executive vice president of the Pioneer League, our buddy Henry Hunter, he interviewed both Adam Jones and CJ Grant DuBose, a pitcher for Mike Tolan's new team, the Northern Colorado Owls, to discuss their thoughts on declining African-American participation in the game of baseball.
All right. We are here with five-time MLB All-Star Baltimore Orioles center fielder Adam Jones, who is a friend of the Pioneer League and a friend of the Roundup Show. And we thank him for being back with us again tonight for today's episode and an important topic. We are also joined by CJ Grant DuBose, pitcher for the Northern Colorado Owls, who previously pitched with the Great Falls Voyagers this year and last year in the Pioneer League. And the two of them have a very unique perspective as successful Black professional baseball players at a time when the numbers are going in the opposite direction. So we saw a lot of value in getting their input on the matter. So let's start with you, Adam. Your experience was obviously unique, with readily identifiable big league talent that kind of supersedes some of the off-field issues. But tell us a little bit about your experience, the people, the circumstances, and what kept you playing baseball when you were usually the only Black kid on the team, and when your friends and family were doing other things or playing other sports.
I mean, my story, obviously, my big league career is, my professional career is very, it's a pure blessing. That's the easiest way to put it. I can say a lot of different things and rephrase it, but it's just a pure blessing. I was saying, when I go back, remember my youth, I don't think we really remember being the only Black player on the team. I don't think we remember being the only being the only, unless, you go to certain tournaments. I remember when I started to get 16 and started playing real travel ball, not say real travel, started playing with teams that weren't my travel ball team. I'm like, okay, well, these guys are different. They're all from, say, Northern California. I started to play with dudes from Antiochs and Fresno's, and I ain't never heard, I ain't never met no dudes from the North. Now baseball brought us together, and then I really started to see different brothers, to be honest with you. And I started to notice, okay, there are some really good Black dudes out there, because Southern California, you hear about, there was Delman Young at the time, who was the top player. Myself got some notoriety, Matt Bush, but the majority of the players that I remember were getting attention were some of the white guys. Modern Day obviously got all the love, Westlake. But then I started to play broad out, and I'm like, okay, well, there are some dudes out here playing, and it's few and far in between, but you start to see them at these national tournaments, especially started playing against teams from Texas and Georgia. It's all filled with Black dudes. And then I just started to say, my people here is playing this game. So I felt more comfortable when I went to these tournaments. It wasn't like, I'm uncomfortable. I honestly never felt that way. I never felt that uncomfortableness of playing, because once I was 13, I started to play travel ball, and the team adopted me and started to bring me into their program. So I never really felt that. But once I got to the big leagues in '08, it was Jay Payton was the only guy, and that was a black guy on my team. '09, I'm by myself. So then I really started to like people started to check Jackie Robinson and the numbers of black players going down. I really started to like think about it. I'm 23 at the time, like, and let me really like dig deep into this issue. And I started saying like, damn, like I thought there was more black players there, and I was surprised by it myself.
Mm.
And I remember Carl Everett, Matt Lawton, they were on the Mariners at the time, and when I got called up, both those guys were getting DFA'd, and like those two black prominent guys who've had really good careers, and and then when a lot of people got DFA'd, black, white, Latin, a lot of people, but obviously me, I identify with the black players more, and I started to see less and less of myself, and it just became, just like weird, like damn. Now I'm starting to think of the economical issues of this, and by this time I'm 25, and I'm like, damn, this is really a business. I thought this was just fun. This is really a socio-economical engine that, like, you have to understand the whole thing. And baseball players, athletes don't get their credit because obviously we've messed up in different ways and done a lot of different things, but we are experienced so much faster than the regular people of life. Most people are 23 to 25 to 30 are living their lives up, doing whatever they're doing. We got to be to bed because we know tomorrow's that Saturday game. We got to be on point. If we're not, our job's on the line, literally our career. These people are out there partying. Who cares what they do tonight? Wake up on someone else's couch, puking in taxis. Who cares what they do? But I'm saying, like, we have to be under control. And like I said, give Tatis $300 million and he breaks his wrist riding dune buggies. He's 23 years old. 22? What the hell you going to do with $300 million? Right. Probably gonna have, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I really started to delve into it. I know I'm rambling, but I started to delve into just the social economic part of the game, and just it surprised the hell out of me.
Right.
When you get deep into the game, into like the real numbers and the core issues of it.
Right. And CJ, you had a similar experience with your travel ball, and kind of the inflection point in your career where you really fell in love with the game and found a meaningful opportunity to pursue your dreams. Tell me about that as well.
Yeah, growing up, I was always around the football, basketball household, and then one year I decided that I wanted to take a break from basketball, and I went and I took and played baseball, and I was one of two black kids on an all Hispanic team. And at first, like Adam said, I didn't really recognize it. I just knew it was a bunch of kids playing baseball. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to about 13, 14 years old, I remember 3 guys came and watched me play. His name was Kevin Martin, Ryan Odoms, and AJ Perry. They came and watched me play, and they pulled me aside and invited me to a practice. And then I walk out to this practice at Holly Park, and there's literally tons of super talented black kids from the inner city just balling out. And I'm just like, I've never seen a bunch of kids that look just like me playing at this level. And that's then that's when they brought me on to this travel ball team. And for years we dominated, and it was great to see. And like Adam said, you start broadening your horizon. You're taking these trips to these tournaments and like Nevada, perfect games in Arizona and stuff. You seeing all these different type of kids, and then you see our team roll out, and it's a team full of all black kids, and we're just balling out. And it was something that opened my eye to the world of not only sports, but just especially with baseball, because with basketball, I've seen kids like me all the time. With football, I've seen kids like me all the time. But with baseball, it was crazy to see that like we would be one team full of black kids, and you look at another team, you may see 1 or 2, or you may not see one at all. And it was just like I started to learn that, this game needs to be opened up to our communities more often. And then that's more so why I decided to choose baseball over basketball and football as I got older. Mm-hmm. And it was just it's a true game of like life lessons, and I want to bring more to my community and my people by showing like inspiring stories like this and being able to just bring my people back to this game. Right.
Good stuff. And I think you both name names specifically, but talk about the role of mentors and the coaches, the older players, the people that gave you that guiding light, that gave you that example along the way. Adam, you want to start? I'm sure you have.
I mean, for me, it was Mark McLemore, obviously. We're 20 years apart, but we have the same background, being from the same city, the same teacher that hooked us up. And, he just paved the way and wrote the blueprint. I mean, it's tough for me. He didn't write the blueprint for the league, for the game, how it works out, but he just told me the game, and he didn't sugarcoat it. He said, "This is how it's going to be. You get to the big leagues. It's not easy. None of this is easy." And then how to handle family, how to handle friends, relationships, wives, and and just the steps of the process of coming in, and then getting a girlfriend, and then now you're juggling a girlfriend and a career, then marriage, and then kids. Like, there's so many different things that a lot of players go through that the fans don't really care about. I mean, first and foremost, they care about the result, but that you go through. You can, like, people. I say, like, when you meet somebody, and you might meet somebody and they might be angry. Like, you don't know what happened to them 10 minutes prior. You don't know if they got bad news. You don't know what happened. Maybe you caught them at a bad time. You know what I mean? Maybe you shouldn't have bothered them in the first damn place. But then, once I started playing and getting into the majors, I had a lot of dudes, man. I had Willie Bloomquist, JJ Putz, Matt Thornton. These are guys that are not big league names, I mean, the biggest names, but these are dudes and these white boys too, that seen that I was a first rounder. And when I first got to, like, my instructional league, they was like, "I don't give a damn, you're a first rounder." They put up my ass and said, "Look, if you going to work, we want you to work. We see the talent." And they made me work. And, those guys I had the most intimate time with, because those three guys were like the 23rd through 25th man on the team. Like, you know what I mean? One bad outing, they down. You know what I mean? The bad week, they down. And those guys fought and they worked. And, Bloomquist being a second round pick, he still got some good slot money, but he still worked his ass off, and he just pushed me. And then when I got traded over to Baltimore, I had Jay Payton in my ear every day. But then, being in the big leagues, and especially being in the AL East and playing against a lot of AL guys, I got to be around Torrey Hunter. I got to be around Griffey. I got to be around Jeter a lot, which was fantastic. CC Sabathia, Big Papi. Like, I got to be around a lot of guys that I watched on TV, and then now I'm at dinner with them, picking their brains on the game and life. And it all came full circle, because that's what the game's about. It's about the knowledge you retain, you got to give it back. And I've been fortunate enough to be around to get information from the game's greatest, and some Hall of Famers. I played with 7 or 8 Hall of Famers, and to be able to just hear their perspectives, like, that's not a perspective. I don't care what you're saying. The greatest sports analyst doesn't have a perspective like this guy, and
right.
I've just been blessed, and I'm just trying to, again, pay it forward, because that information sitting in my brain is useless if it's not out in the world.
Right, and that's part of the reason we appreciate you so much, and giving the Pioneer League so much of your time and wisdom. I know both of you guys are paying it forward from where you are. CJ, you coach too, right?
Yeah, I coach at a high school back in LA, and it's a predominantly Black school, especially on the baseball team. And it's honestly a different experience I've ever seen too, being on the coaching side, not even just being on the player side, because you see a lot of these kids, like, we come and play against teams like Aquinas or Westlake and stuff like that. You see all these kids who aren't Black, and then you see a team like us come in and we're Black, and we come in and ball out, and it's like, when you see those type of teams, it gives more kids like the ability to want to come play. Like, we have a lot of kids that come up to the school just to watch the games, because they see kids that look just like them, and they're closer in age. So they're not looking at guys that are my age or older. They're looking at kids that are 3, 2, 4 years older than them, that are doing things, getting opportunities. And it's amazing. And I can say, like, the reason why I chose to do that, especially at that high school, was because of not only the coaches, but guys like Dominic Smith, Marcus Wilson. They came through that high school. They paved the way for us to come through and do things like that. So it's just like, especially being in LA, growing up in that type of environment, seeing those type of guys come through that type of system, it makes it all more better for you.
Right, and part of the reason that we're so fortunate to have Randy Wilkins on tonight's show is because he's leading the way in the importance of the narrative and the storytelling, and elevating. He and Mike Tolan, whether it's the Hank Aaron story, whether it's the Derek Jeter, the captain, is on now. Talk about the importance of the exposure, both of current players and the mentors and the role models. Maybe Adam, you can tell us about some of the guys that you
Well, you have to first off, you have to honor, acknowledge the people that paved the way, and you know, you don't need the Hall of Fame. I don't think that. I don't think the African Americans, the community, the Negro League players. I mean, obviously now you see the combination of the stats with the Negro League and the Baseball Hall of Fame. I wrote a big excerpt on that. But I think like working through the Players Alliance now, with the Negro Leagues, I think that now we have enough firepower to recognize all the people, not everybody, it's impossible to recognize everybody, but the vast majority of people that have paved the way, and especially the guys that are still living, because there's not a lot of Negro League players still alive. That's just, time. I was able to meet a couple at the All-Star game, but there's not that many that are alive. And you need to honor those guys. You need to show them and show more videos of them, show any highlights that are even possible of them, put more excerpts, anything about them, give them their flowers. Also with that, the guys that are still alive, the Dave Winfields, the Eric Davises, the Darryl Strawberries. I mean, the list goes on and on of African Americans that are still alive that were so instrumental in civil rights movements, because, with the Dave Stewart era, that we're talking about civil rights, that's for millions and millions of people. We're talking about something for 750 people that we're trying to get inside of a game, and still millions of people, because it trickles down. This is socioeconomical and like completely different. But like, you're fighting for something, and we need to just like we did at the Players Alliance during the All-Star game. We had a dinner and we honored Eric Davis and Darryl Strawberry. First off, we in LA. You'd be a fool as a black man, black baseball player, not honor those two. That's just like disrespectful in all head. You know what I'm saying? That's just totally disrespectful. So we did that, and the appreciation that they showed, and these two legends and we all looked up to the dudes. And you got guys in there that's some Hall of Famers, guys that made all kind of ton of money. Man, you bow down and kiss the ring to those two dudes. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's what we need to do. We need to honor our black dudes, and we're doing a better job at the Players Alliance. We did a good job at the All-Star game, and we're going to do a better job going forward, because these are the guys that paved the way in every city. Like, I'm from San Diego, so I had Tony Gwynn, but I also had the access to, I had Jock Jones, but I had, like I said, Eric Davis, Darryl Strawberry. I had access to LA because we SoCal. But then you go to Houston's, and guys had access to the guys out in Houston's and Georgia's. And as we start to go around the United States, we're going to tap into those locations, because there's players still alive. Mike Cameron out in Georgia running a lot of baseball things. Like, he's primed for a lot of things that's going on. Like, the movement is big now. And like I said in our call the other day, it's not just about like saying going and getting people off the street to go play baseball. You can't do that. It's impossible. It's expensive. If you're playing, we got you. And we're trying to get your ass seen by every single person that can offer you something, because we know that once the lights is on us, we shine bright. That's just common fact. That's history.
Right.
I make that part up.
Right. And that's awesome. And CJ, you too obviously have taken advantage of your opportunities. You got a little screen time, a little budding career in Hollywood as well. Talk about the role of the narratives and the role models you've seen, and the importance of representation in the storytelling of baseball, whether it's the behind the camera, in front of the camera, on the field, all the different roles that you've been part of the story of baseball.
I'd say, outside of being a professional athlete, being on that TV show All American Homecoming and depicting the life of being at HBCU and being on the HBCU baseball team is probably the most iconic thing I've been a part of. We bring so much light from that TV show alone, just to show how important it is to give black baseball players in the HBCU culture their light, because there's a lot of kids or young men, I should say, that are really ballers at HBCU, but we don't get the credit. Like, for me, growing up in high school, I didn't really understand a lot about college, but as I got into college and going to these PWIs, I started to learn more. I wish I would have went to an HBCU. But playing the sport that I play, at an HBCU, you don't really get that much. So it's like, oh, do I choose to go to Howard to play baseball? Or do I choose to go somewhere else and try to get that image so I can make my dream come true? And it's just like being behind the camera and putting that on the TV screen to where millions of people are watching this now. and making more people want to go to HBCU, I think is amazing. And that's just from what I've done behind the camera. But like on the field, I have a lot of kids back home who are starting to look up to me, and it's creating this type of narrative that I never thought I would be a part of. I never thought just because I go back home and coach at a high school or run a couple lessons and have kids that see me and want to become a pitcher or want to join baseball, like, hey man, I don't even want to play football no more. Like I want to play baseball. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like just from being in that element, I never thought that narrative could be built the way it would do for me, you know.
Yeah.
And then just like how Adam was talking about the guys that paved the way, like for him, guys like I looked up to Thom. Thom Smith was 5 years older than me, and I looked up to him because he was the closest thing I had to seeing a black baseball player that was just absolutely phenomenal on and off the field. And to this day, whenever I talk to Dom or like Marcus, these conversations, like they're more like my big brothers, but they're also like guys who I looked up to growing up and guys who I still look up to this day. And it's like you have to having those type of role models, especially close to your age, it means a lot because not only do they understand you, but it gives you some type of insight to be like, if they can do it, I can do it.
Right. And I know that, you know, your real life baseball experience has been a long way from the HBCU you go to on TV. So talk about how, you know, not only are you guys diversifying the game, but the game has diversified your life experiences. You know, Adam, baseball took you as far as Japan. You know, you're coming just live from Barcelona today. You know, obviously,
I mean,
financially it changed your horizon, but culturally, globally, and then CJ, you never imagined you'd be, you know, on a horse in northern Montana either. So you know, both of you talk about just the way that, you know, it's a two-way street kind of. You're diversifying the game, but the game is diversifying you as well. Wouldn't you say?
I mean, I come from San Diego, California, listening to E40, Killer Tay, Looney Coleon, Snoop. I mean, just West Coast music of the 90s. And, and then, obviously the new wave of music come through of, Jeezy and T.I. and all them of the early 2000s. And then, I find myself in a locker room in Appleton, Wisconsin, listening to Conway Twitty and who the hell else is on the damn radio. Because I can't control the radio no more. It's not this, it's the older guys getting that, dudes from West Virginia and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a culture shock. And I'm 18 years old, like, what in the hell? I've heard of Garth Brooks. I've heard of Toby Keith. Heard of the big names. Who hasn't? But, like, listening to it consistently and all that kind of stuff. And, it just was a culture shock. Meeting, like, my roommate, black dude, he's from Newnan, Georgia, right outside Atlanta. And, like, he was a culture shock for me. Hell, I couldn't understand his ass half the damn time. You know what I mean? And then I had like four dudes. Fortunately, I was able to play with some black dudes in the lower levels and the minors, and they all was country as hell. You know what I mean? But it was cool because I never really interacted with them. But then, obviously, as I got called up and experienced my career, being around all the different Latins, the Venezuelan, the Dominican, the Cuban, the Mexican, tasting of different food, the different spices, different things, being the different styles of dress and play. Then being able to travel the world. I've been to 25 countries, I think, so far. And, goal is to see about 100. Those are, the main 100 that are first world countries. And I really don't care to go to a place that ain't got running water. I ain't trying to really do all that. I ain't that damn ambitious. But, the game has just taught me it just gave me experiences. So, first off, don't be fearful of anything. Don't be afraid to try anything. Don't be afraid to be a risk taker. Baseball's taught me that. And then obviously the cultural experiences. And again, I played in Japan for 2 years, and what a lifestyle it is. Completely different from being a spoiled major leaguer in a nice suite, nice big ass house. Now I'm in an apartment with driving on the other side of the road, can't read a sign. Like, it humbles you. Like, this game just continuously teaches you great lessons. And like I said, now we're living in Barcelona because why not? Like, why not challenge ourselves to do something else? And baseball, it challenges every day. You had a good outing. You had a good day. Okay, congratulations. Next day. Like, no one cares about what you did yesterday. Like, that's baseball. It consistently challenges you. And that's one thing I learned about the game is that on all facets, the game consistently will challenge you. If you're hitting good, well, your defense might be slipping right now. They're going to hit you too many balls. If you ain't hitting, your defense is good. Your base running might be slipping. Something is going on, and it's always a constant adjustment. And being married with kids, that's the biggest damn adjustment. It was easy. Baseball, easy. Good damn. Married with kids, ooh, shit, help me.
Right? I'm looking to see who's listening here.
You know what I'm saying?
And CJ, literally and figuratively, you couldn't be further from South Central LA right now. Did you ever see yourself on a horse in Montana or riding around the back roads of Colorado?
Oh man, let me tell you, growing up in South Central LA, I never thought I would be anywhere out in the country wearing a cowboy hat. Me and my friends make the running joke a lot. We call myself like concrete cowboy. Like I've had the pleasure to be able to travel, and I've been, I think, 25, 26 different states and experienced different cultures and everything from college to now. And let me tell you, I went to school in Kentucky, and I've seen some back row stuff that I never thought I would see. Listen to some music I never thought I'd listen to. It was like Adam said, man, like it was a real humbling experience. You know what I mean? And it's just like coming out to Montana, I didn't know what to expect. First off, never in my life did I ever think I was going to go to Montana. I didn't even know. This is gonna sound funny, but I didn't even know there was a state Montana. I was like whatever is up there, I don't know what's up there. But I get out there and I meet my host family, the Bowers and everything. They tell me how much they ride horses and shoot guns and stuff. And I'm like, look, I ain't never shot a gun. I ain't never been on a horse. I got to go. When can we go? We got first off day, hopped out there. Let me tell you, I'm glad that I learned how to shoot a gun out there, because like if I had to save my life, like I might have just had to put the gun down at that point, because that first shot was, I don't know where it went. But then when I got on that horse, man, like, I was nervous. I never realized how big a horse was, let alone their leg, compared to a 6-foot human.
Right.
His thigh was the size of my entire body. And I said, you know what, this might not be for me for a moment. But I got on that horse, man, and it changed my life. Now I want to move somewhere where I can ride horses every day. I want to move somewhere where I can just have land. I want to have like my future where I'm like settled down somewhere where I got a bunch of land and my kids. I'm like, where's dad at? Oh, he's just out there riding horses off at the sunset. Right. I want that. That's the life I built for myself. And if you would have asked me that graduating high school, like coming from LA, I would have never said that. And it's just the biggest blessing being able to just experience different cultures. Like some of my best friends, they're from the South, and some of my best friends live in a different country, like from Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic and stuff like that. And it's just like being able to experience all these different cultures and different lifestyles, being able to see how you relate and see how you differ. It's something that I never thought I would ever experience, and I'm thankful for it and it really all came from baseball.
That's beautiful. Well, I want to thank you both for honoring the game, honoring the culture, joining the PBL Roundup Show, and being such great contributions, substantively on the field, off the field, and everywhere in between to the Pioneer League. So thank you. This was great, and I look forward to talking with each of you again soon. Keep it up.
Henry, that is great stuff. And we'd like to thank everybody that's been a part of this part of our show tonight. Mike Tolan, Randy Wilkins, Adam Jones, CJ Grant DeBose, Henry Hunter, and all their thoughts on this incredibly important issue through the future of baseball and the great work by our guys from Syracuse University. All right, now each and every week on the PBL show, we take a look at a different team, a different city. Tonight, we're looking at the Grand Junction Rockies. And who better to fill us in than their outstanding general manager, Mick Ritter. Mick, how you doing tonight? Where are you tonight, if anywhere?
Doing good. Actually, we're at the stadium. We've got a game, so I just hopped into my office here to get on this PBL Roundup show for you.
Now, how did you get started in eventually becoming a general manager?
Actually, I played kind of probably the typical route that people really get into baseball is I grew up playing baseball, played baseball in college. I went to a junior college and then decided on my 4-year, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And one of the 4 years I was looking at me had a sports management degree. And I said, well, what a better way to continue to stay in baseball. So I got that sports management degree, moved back to Grand Junction, and just was at the right place at the right time, really. Been working here since 2014.
Billy?
So are you from Grand Junction?
Yep, originally grew up, born and raised. You know, there was no. That's an old photo. I actually played on that field with that's our old press box. Played on that field a lot growing up. So
yeah, is that Simplesio?
That's Simplesio. Yep, that's pre 2012, pre renovation.
Wow. Great junior college tradition in Grand Junction. I mean, I know, and great summer college tradition in Grand Junction. I know a lot of great players that went through there and played there. And I was actually a very good friend with Sam Simplesio.
Yep.
So what you guys have done a lot of stuff in the off season to your ballpark, and we know Grand Junction is a place, you know, the fans, if they're within a few hours, they need to go there too. But what about your ballpark?
Yeah, so actually this off season, so as that last photo you saw, it actually we're multi-use, so we've got football on one side and baseball on the other side. So the city and some other entities that utilize the facility basically just put in quite a bit of money, $11 million, and we got new bleachers all behind home plate. We've got the football side, got some new bleachers over there. We've got more fixed seats, new lights. The lights were last time they adjusted the lights was like 1995. It's just crazy how all of a sudden we just decided to come with the times and got some LED lights. It's awesome. But yeah, new bleachers, new concrete, new power, something that the stadium desperately needed.
Mick, can I ask what's the Challenger game all about? Can you tell us a little bit about the Challenger? And I think maybe we have some video of this.
Yeah, Challenger baseball. It's huge in Grand Junction. Actually, I grew up involved in it. I was one of the original participants at the age of 10. A bunch of my baseball teams, we participated in it. So Challenger baseball is kids be on a normal baseball team, basically. They have a game once a week, and now there's 8 full teams of 20 kids on each team, I believe is what it is. And interesting thing is each one of the teams is actually a Pioneer League name. So we have the Vibes, the Rockies, the Paddleheads. And so they actually came out last Friday night and played an exhibition game style on our
Uh-oh.
Mick, you still with us or we lose you?
Awesome.
Okay, we lost you, Mick, there temporarily real quick. But that's so cool. And what you guys and really what the Pioneer League is all about and doing so much for the communities where you play. We've done this with some other PBL teams. We allowed you to take us on a short tour of your concessions. So let's have a look at this. Joe, what was your favorite there, Joe?
I mean, I thought the shot of the Philly cheesesteak should have gone on for longer, personally. That was like food porn. The music, the food. I mean, that was like, I don't know if we can show that. We might be in trouble with the FCC.
Nick,
more where that came
what's
from,
your
Joe.
favorite? What's your favorite, Nick?
The Phillies are probably one of my favorite.
Are they?
I just saw you guys had Mike Tolan on earlier. I'm sure he's probably going, well, they're using white cheese instead of the typical Philly cheesesteak, but they're pretty good sellers here for us.
Well, Mick, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us this week. We're going to be talking a lot about your ball club. Best of luck over the second half of the season.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And speaking of his team, former major league pitcher, he had a good run at it when he first came to the big leagues. Bill had a chance to visit with the Rockies manager, Bobby Jenks.
Okay, we've got Grand Junction's Bobby Jenks with us. And Bobby, hey, thanks for being here with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, do you go by Bob or Bobby?
I can go Bobby.
Yeah. That's the only way I've known you. Big fan of your work. How many years you got in the big leagues?
I think, just over 8. I was credited for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just shy of that big milestone.
8, 9, 10. I'll tell you what. You were an all-star twice and a World Series champ once. And there are guys like me who worked for 40 years and never got something like that. Congratulations. That's a hell of a career, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I was very blessed. I got blessed early in this game, and right place, right time with the White Sox. And I think we were just talking about it. Coming over from the Angels, never getting the chance over there, being picked up on waivers by the White Sox in the winter of 2004, right into that 2005 season. So it was quite the journey.
Crazy, right?
You never know what's going to happen.
Never. And that's a good thing for you to be able to tell your players there, because there's so many teams that Major League Baseball has cut out, and we've cut the draft back so far. Your words of wisdom are real important to those guys.
That's one of the things that I find very important here. It's not only what you do with these guys on the field, but also being somebody that you can mentor or I don't want to say father figure, because I don't think that's the right word, but definitely someone that you can look up to or come to for advice about life issues.
Yeah. It's real easy with the success you had to be a big leaguer for life. And you're there in the Pioneer League helping kids. And what I think is a great league. I've been doing this for so long, and I know my leagues, and it's a great league. But what led you to going to the Pioneer League as a manager? What led to that?
It's kind of a funny story. So last year, before I became the pitching coach here in Grand Junction, I've been sitting around. I'd worked with the White Sox a little bit. I was a rover for them. It didn't work out. I wanted to be in one location. I wanted to be a pitching coach, and it just wasn't the right timing. So I went back home, and I was thankful for the opportunity, but I wanted to pursue a straight up pitching coach somewhere. And so I sat around for a few more years, and it really got to me that I needed to do something. So I put on a suit one day and started sending applications out. Ended up getting hired by a marketing firm. And literally right after being hired, that was like on a Saturday, coming in for like my third interview. I was supposed to start Monday. So I'm driving back home to my house from downtown LA in a suit, in that traffic, on a Saturday. And I said, what the heck am I doing? And I called him back right away, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it.
I'm out.
I started making some phone calls, and a close friend of both of ours, Jack Huey, I got in touch with him. I said, Jack, help me find a job. And he knew Jimmy Johnson, who was the manager here last year. So he put me in touch with Jimmy. And so that's how it started last year. And then Jimmy stepping down this year, I moved right into the role.
Oh yeah, I love that story. That's a great story. And I think that's just great advice. That's just another layer of your life you're able to give. I mean, you went through 3 interviews, and you competed. You had to compete for that job.
Yeah.
You didn't want it. Ultimately, you didn't want it, but you got it. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was one of those things where it was a moment that obviously that I needed, that God set before me, that showed me what I was supposed to be doing, and that's be in baseball. To teach what I do know, what I've got in this brain, to share and pass that along to other generations in this game.
Yeah, that's fabulous. That is fabulous. I do think that outside baseball experience you had, although it was short, that was great. That's competition. No matter what people want to say, when you go through three interviews, you're competing. You're doing your best.
It was fun. I never had a real job before, as you can say, because baseball might be a job, but I don't. It's when you do something you love, it's never a job, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. If you find what you love, my son went through four years of college. He graduated on time. He did really well. Really proud of him. And then he came to us and said, "I want to be a firefighter."
Yeah.
So we said, you know what? You find something you love. You never work another day in your life. But what if you could pick out from being a two-time All-Star, a World Series champion, having a great big league career, what are like two gems? One. If you got more than that, that's fine. But things that you remember that help you, that are the basics that help you teach these young kids who aren't with a major league affiliated club, and really they're just they're hanging on and they know it, but a lot of them make it. But what's your takeaway from your big league career that helps you most now?
I don't think there's one specific thing that I can put a finger on. I think it's a combination of all the years that I spent in the minor leagues and the major leagues with a plethora of really good coaches, taking little bits of what I use from each one of them, what I used that were good, kind of filtered through some other things, and came up with like really my own philosophy on the things that I have already learned from the coaches before me. So with that said, it's not a one thing. It's everything that I know, try to simplify it and give it to these guys in a way that as I would high schoolers. Because, I find the more simple you make things, the easier it is to grasp and understand them and then apply them into your mechanics if we're talking about pitching.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great answer. That's a great broad answer, and that's the reality of life. You take everything and you try to hit. I mean, you got 26 players, however many players you got, they're all different. You got to approach them all differently, or at least think about them a little bit differently.
And another big thing too. So I still work a lot with the pitchers. Manager, but also the pitching coach here. I really focus on proper mechanics, and with saying that, you cannot cookie cut anybody. They're all individuals, like you just said, and if you treat them as individuals, taking what they do best, and then just kind of doing a couple little tweaks here and there can make all the difference.
Yeah. Did you have any? This isn't a manager question, but when you shifted from when you finished playing and you eventually start roving, did you have any transition difficulty going from playing to not playing?
Well, yeah. I did for other reasons.
8 years is a long time.
Yeah,
8 years is a long time.
Well, I did for other reasons. I think there's there's a lot of people who know my story, but there's also a lot of people who don't. I had a very tough end of my career, and I had a lot of obstacles that I had to get over after my career. And it wasn't that I didn't want to do it. I had to do it when I was ready to do it. And then that's part of the recovery that I had to go through. And not only physically but mentally, being a recovering alcoholic, and I was abusing pills, and there was a lot of things in my life that I had to get through before I could even consider doing something like this. And that was part of the reason why I knew I wasn't ready. When it came to the roving, because there was a lot of still things that I was still battling, and with the baseball life, the baseball schedule. It's a different lifestyle, as you know, and you've got to be mentally right for that. And I wasn't at that time. And So when I went out for that interview, I knew I was ready. When I was able to turn it down with confidence, because I knew I wanted to be back in baseball.
Yeah, I tell you what, you're battling those demons at the end of your career, and you ended up getting two things. You got this job you didn't want, then you found the job you wanted. I mean, this story gets better and better. And I will add to this, to your point. I will challenge the normal human being to go through a major league season and go on stage 162 days out of 183 and not have some sort of problem along the way. And when you have one problem, it can escalate and snowball into bigger ones. So people underestimate the difficulty of going on stage every night.
Oh yeah, that's why we say to these guys, it's a grind. You got to be able to go through the grind.
Yep.
Once you get into a full season and August comes around, if you can do it or not.
Yeah,
how you can handle those months.
Yeah, but you're simplifying that to the guys that want to do that, and there's a whole fan base out there, and most of them are good, hardworking 9 to 5ers, weekends off. That's not baseball, man. We take these human beings and put them in the most inhumane practice. And I know we pay well, I know we travel well, I know we hotel well, I know we feed well. I get it, but it's a whole different animal.
It truly is. I think how like the football does the behind the scenes on HBO.
Yeah.
I think that would be great for baseball as well, so people can get the full understanding of what it means showing up at 7:30 every morning, ready to go in spring training, to what it takes on the big league level to that full. It's long. I mean, we're talking from February to October. It's a grind.
Yeah, you're right. And by the way, on the off days, I want them to fly from John Wayne to JFK.
Yeah, right.
What are you looking for? You just started the second half. I shouldn't say just started, but recently you started the second half. What are you looking for with your ball club the second half that you might not have had the first half?
It's not what we started with. Let me rewind. So how we started, how we finished the second half is where I want to start the first half, which we're doing right now.
All right.
The second half of the first half, we were a fantastic ball club, and we just, the way we started, we just came up a little short. We've got the right fit of guys in the clubhouse now. We got great talent all around us. Our pitching's good, and our defense is good, and we can swing the bats. Now it's just staying consistent and keep doing what we're doing right now. And the way we finished the first half, I knew with confidence that we had a good shot at taking this, winning the second half, because the way we finished.
Okay, good answer. Hey, listen, I'm going to close it off here, and I got to tell you, man, I was in the job I had for a long time as a farm director, being involved in scouting and the major league club. I was a fan of your work because I was a professional. I was watching a professional. You're just really, really good. But watching you in the Pioneer League and now having the privilege to talk to you, I'm a huge Bobby Jenks fan, and now I see why Jack Huey loves you.
Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate that. Really, I do.
Thanks for being with us, and good luck.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Anytime.
All right. Take care.
That's great stuff, Billy. That is great stuff. Thank you to you and Bobby Jenks for doing that interview. Now, our Syracuse analyst, Carter Lewis, we're wondering how they doing, right? He just said they played good at the end of the first half, came up a little bit short. How about some analysis, Carter, on this Rockies team and their chances in the second half?
Well, yeah. So as he said earlier, they had a bit of a rocky start in the first half, but they've gone a lot better since then. As we can just look at from their team record overall, in the first half, they only finished 2 games above 500, but they tuned it up a lot towards the end of the first half and gave Ogden a really good run for their money, almost winning the division at the end there before Ogden closed it out. In the second half, they're starting off really hot, starting off really well, 10-4, best record in the league, best record in the South. So they're having a great start. Offensively, they're pretty league average, although I imagine that's jumped up a lot since the start of the season. And I imagine if you'd looked at the last month or so, those offensive numbers are probably going to be closer to top 3 in the league. But as you can see, 5th in pretty much everything, 4th in strikeouts, 4th in walks, overall pretty average. Their pitching, however, is where they really shine. Every single one of those stats, they're fifth or better, and they're even as high as second, when such as in strikeouts. They keep the walks down, they keep the hits down, they keep the runs down, and they don't make a lot of fielding errors either, which you can see by the fact that they're fourth in both runs and fourth in ERA. If we look at some of their standouts from so far this season, we have Nico Popa, who was our South batter of the first half. Great slash line there, 22 extra base hits so far, 58 RBIs, and 19 stolen bases, which is towards the top half of the league. And then Casey Peterson, who was one of our most recent South batters of the week. He has a great slash line as well, OPSing at over 1,000, 26 extra base hits, another 58 RBIs. So him and Popa are right there with each other, producing at a similar rate, and a nearly 14% walk rate. So he's walking, he's getting on base, he's doing well on that front. And then Josh Agnew, one of the starting pitchers, who is actually pitching tonight. Through 61 and a 2/3 innings pitch, he's made 9 starts. He's 6-2. He's a great ERA at 4.67. And then he has 65 strikeouts, which is actually leading the league. So tonight he'll look to build on that.
All right, good stuff. Thank you very, very much, Carter Lewis, bringing us up to date on what's happening with that team and their chances for the second half. Off to a good start at 10-4 to begin the second half. So it's time now. We didn't have him last week. We missed our main man, our famed comedian and commentator, Will Durst, for tonight's trade deadline segment. Who's on Durst?
Will Durst here for the Pioneer Baseball League Roundup. And today I want to talk about the trade deadline. Thank God we don't have to worry about it in the real world, because in dugouts all over America, you know, people were, even if they said they weren't, they were. Because, I mean, look at Juan Soto, could get traded. Why not Clayton Kershaw? You know, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. Marvin Bernard, anybody could get traded. And you never think that what you got traded for was what you should have been, you know. I don't care who you are. Really? You traded me for him? Are you kidding, man? Oh, no, you got traded for some used catcher's equipment and a couple of rosin bags. Seriously? Not even a bag of balls? So it never works out. And you got your change of locale. Again, you just made it all the way through the minors. 4 stops, maybe 4 different cities. And now you made it to the bigs. And now you got a whole new system. And then you don't get traded to Kansas City. You get traded to Kansas City's AAA team, which is, I don't know where, probably in Omaha. See, that's the good news. Getting traded to Kansas City. I mean, ribs, hopefully you like ribs. And Warren Buffett is only an hour away. So there are always good things to be had from wherever you move. Milwaukee's got a lot of beer, good cheese, really good cheese, and good sausage. Milwaukee's got the beer, the cheese, and the sausage. Hey, yeah. When I first moved from Milwaukee to San Francisco for comedy as a comedian, I used to tell people on stage that I got traded to San Francisco for 2 mimes and a juggler to be named later. And people laughed, as opposed to you. But one show, a guy came up to me afterwards and said, really? The 2 mimes I can see, but the juggler? Turns out he juggled. Who knew? So don't get traded. And if you do, I hope it's for a bag of balls. For the Pioneer Baseball League Roundup, I'm Will Durst. See you next week. Happy baseball, everybody.
Joe, you're grooving on that music a little bit. I kind of like that tune.
I like that tune. It reminds me of an Allman Brothers tune. Maybe it is an Allman Brothers tune.
Right. It does. It does. Or a little Marshall Tucker band or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. We got great music. I'm always rocking out right before that music that leads up to the show. And, you know, Midland. I started listening to the whole Midland album. It's a little.
You did not.
I did. It's a little country for me, frankly. But the one song I really dig. It's a little too country.
Okay. Well, the trade deadline, Billy. Before we look at some of these other crazy trades that have been made, and Durst made reference to it. Can you believe the Padres?
Oh my God!
I mean, seriously, can you believe the Padres?
They're all in. I appreciate that. This is one of those things. And listen, I've been there and done it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, I'm sitting here talking to you. So
thanks a lot.
He's gonna. I kind of like it. They're all in. Obviously, they have a damn good team, and it's hard to imagine, but it's true. The Dodgers still have a better lineup, and I think the Dodgers still have a better team. But I'm not sure who they're chasing. I think they want to get to that first series and then see how far they can go. But they have made it real fun to watch the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm. I just can't believe they pull that off. Joe, were you any feelings about your Red Sox there at the deadline?
I don't know. I was very sad about Christian Vasquez. He was very sad. I love him. And he did a press conference. He said he wants to come back. So the Red Sox have just completely unraveled. I don't know who the real team is, if it's that June team or the July team, but I feel like it's more the July team. And but I'm excited to watch the Padres. My man, Don Orsillo, speaking of bad trades and firing.
Good dude. Good
love Orsillo, and the Red Sox screwed him over, it felt like. So I watch a lot of Padres games for Orsillo. So.
Well, him and Mark Grant are a fabulous team. Mark Grant's one of the funniest human beings that has ever walked the face of the earth. All right, let's get updated on our games tonight. Carter, let's start with you. 2 games you're handling for us: Ogden at Grand Junction and the Glacier Range Riders in Billings. Carter, take it away.
Yep. So we'll start with Glacier at Billings. So tonight, coming into the game, the Glacier Range Riders, they're 4-9 and are currently last in the North Division, but they're only 2.5 games back of first, because right now in the North, things are super compact. Everyone's fighting it out. It's really good competition up there. They went 3-3 in their previous series against Missoula. So while they did only draw it, they did go 3-3 against the North Division champions. So they're looking pretty good. One of their highlight players, outfielder Ben McConnell, currently leads the league in steals this season with 31 and has an 86% success rate. The starting pitcher for tonight is Rob Hamby. Through 44 innings pitched, he has a 2-1 record, 4.09 ERA with 37 strikeouts and a 1.318 WHIP. For the Billings Mustangs, they are currently 6-7 in the North Division and are fourth, also 2.5 games back of first. They went 2-4 in the previous series against Northern Colorado, but they did win the first game of the series yesterday, so they got off to the right start.
Okay.
A player to watch for them is outfielder Jalen Garcia. He currently leads the league in triples with 7 this year. And the starting pitcher for tonight is Patrick Maybach, who through 7 1/3 innings pitched is 0-2 with an 11.05 ERA, 7 strikeouts, and a 2.590 WHIP. As for the other game that I'm covering tonight, Ogden at Grand Junction. For Ogden, they're currently 7-6 and third in the South Division, 2.5 games back of first. They won their previous series against the Boise Hawks 5-1, so they're coming into this series pretty hot. A player to watch for them is their infielder, Jesus Valdez, who is tied for third in slugging percentage at .640. The starting pitcher for tonight is Christian Daw, who through 56 innings pitched is 6-1, has a 4.50 ERA, 50 strikeouts, and a 1.643 WHIP. For the Grand Junction Rockies, as I talked about earlier, they're currently on a heater. They're the first team to 10 wins this season. They are first in the South Division, and they won the previous series against the Rocky Mountain Vibes 5-1. And also they won the first game of the series yesterday. So again, they're continuing to roll on, like they said earlier, wanting to keep that hot streak going. A player to look out for them is Sean Ross, their infielder, who is currently tied for third in walks at 41. And the starting pitcher tonight, like I mentioned earlier, is Josh Agnew.
Carter, thanks so much. Good stuff. Let's turn to Austin. You got a pair of games tonight as well. Northern Colorado against Rocky Mountain and Great Falls in Missoula to take on the Paddleheads. Austin?
Yeah, so starting in the South, we have a Colorado State rivalry game tonight as the 7-5 Owls visit the 4-8 Vibes. For Northern Colorado, the Owls will certainly be pleased with their start to the half so far, coming into tonight 2 games above 500 after finishing the first half 11 games below even. They've been turning up the heat recently, taking 4 of 6 games against Billings last week, and they claimed their 5th win in 6 games last night in the series opening win, thanks to a go-ahead single from Cameron Phelps in the top of the 9th inning. Their run scoring has been a little inconsistent recently, but their pitching has been more than enough to get the job done, and they'll be looking for more of the same as they push for first place. As for Rocky Mountain, the Vibes have been trending in the opposite direction, as their loss last night marked their 5th straight defeat. After starting the second half 4-3 and in position to contend, the Vibes have gone winless since last Wednesday and have sunk down to 4th place in the division. Quality pitching has been scarce, and the bats have been missing entirely. Rocky Mountain got outscored 65-36 in their last 7 games, and they're going to need to flip the switch quickly if they want to avoid another last place finish. And so far this season, these two teams have played 16 times and have almost split it. Northern Colorado has taken 9, while Rocky Mountain's taken 7. So tonight should be a close affair. Mm-hmm. And moving up north, we have a couple of North Division juggernauts as the 7-6 Voyagers visit the 8-5 Paddleheads. These two clubs finished 1st and 2nd in the North in the first half, and both find themselves in position to challenge for the division crown now as we enter the 3rd week of the half. The Voyagers responded to a mediocre start to the half with a series win against Idaho Falls last week, and have set themselves in a position to set the tone for the rest of the season in this series with the defending champs. They dropped the opener of the series last night in the 3-round knockout, their 2nd knockout round in as many games. Moving on to the Paddleheads, the first half division champs have kept their winning ways going to open the half. They're currently riding a 3-game win streak and have won 4 of their last 5. Their big names have come out of the gates hot too, with outfielder Lamar Sparks tallying 2 home runs and 8 RBIs, and superstar Jason Newman raking 4 home runs and 12 RBIs of his own. The Paddleheads have won 13 of 22 games against the Voyagers so far this season, and will be looking to keep that trend going this week as they look for a full season sweep of the North Division.
All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Austin. Great stuff. And last but certainly not least, bringing us another intra-state matchup tonight. Boise against Idaho Falls. Owen?
Yep, that's right. Boise Hawks are playing in Idaho Falls tonight against the Chuckers. Boise is last in the South Division currently. They're 3-10. They have a 20-41 overall record. Their last series was in Ogden, where they won 1 game and lost 5. Against Idaho Falls this year, they have 4 wins and 9 losses. A star player for them is Juan Teixeira, an outfielder who's batting 3rd tonight. He leads their team in batting average, home runs, and RBIs, and went 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs yesterday. Something not so good for Boise. They've allowed 55 runs in their last 4 games.
Ooh.
At home tonight is Idaho Falls. They come in at 1st in the North Division at 8-5. They're 35-26 overall. They lost their last series in Great Falls 2-4 against the Voyagers. Their offense has been really hot. They have 52 hits in their last 3 games. They recently lost one of their star players, Calvin Estrada, who you guys know, to an injury. But their combo of Hunter Hiskey, Dusty Stroop, Steve Warmakian, and Matt Feinstein looks to keep them atop the standings.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much. Great job. Great job by all the guys at Syracuse who are with us this entire summer on the PBL Roundup Show presented by the Baseball Bureau Scout School. All right, upcoming week. Billy, what do you got going on?
Nothing.
Good.
I'm visiting my son and his family. And so, well, actually, you know what? I think I'm going to head back in a few days and stop in Vegas for one night and see what problems I can cause.
Wow.
Yeah.
I might meet you. What night you going?
Monday.
I got to move my daughter back into college. I'm driving by myself down to Texas on Friday morning.
All right.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. Joe, what do you got happening? You're hanging in Toronto all week, and when are you getting out of there, or what are you doing?
Toronto was last week, all done with Toronto, but this weekend, big weekend, Saturday, the movie starts streaming at 4thofjulymovie.com, and you can get it online. Go to 4thofjulymovie.com, and we did an audio commentary.
Spelled out, right? I want to make sure I got that. FOURTH of July.com.
Yeah, you can go to louisck.com too, but I don't say that as much because, you know, he's very controversial. So we bought 4thofjulymovie.com, but it just takes you right to louisck.com. Who am I kidding? I love the guy. You go do that. There's an audio commentary. We did it together, deleted scenes. It comes with a whole bunch of stuff. And I have so little. Please go buy the movie, everybody, for God's sakes. My parents hate me. My father, he'll never talk to me again. And then I'll be in Nashville August 12th and 13th, and Liberty Funny Bone August 19 and 20.
19th. Yeah, I'm so glad you're the 19th because the 18th, we had something planned that I wasn't aware of, and I thought you had said last week that you were the 18th, and I was just like, oh, man, that stinks. But 19th, I'm in.
I can't wait. That's going to be fun.
I'm in. All right. Fellas, have a great rest of your week and all your travels, safe travels. God bless. Godspeed ahead. So for all of us at the PBL Roundup Show, that's going to do it tonight. Thanks to the Baseball Bureau's Scout School. We thank our entire crew, our producer, Jackson Shapiro, executives Mike Shapiro and Henry Hunter, all the guys from Syracuse. We thank all of you for watching. We thank all our guests tonight. It's been an interesting show. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Darling, I still hear your name through the windshield wipers and the driving rain. I'll be crossing the Rocky Mountains in the morning, and it's one too many lonely nights when the highway comes to be a way of life. Seems like about the time I'm getting there, I'm going. Hear the Peterbilt whine down the solid white line.